authority imposing itself on the behavior of humans. But that view is not and was never universally accepted. Quite famously, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, when he imagined a state of nature, so how societies would look without overarching authority, came to the idea that actually humans would be quite pleasant toward each other, non-violent toward each other. The simple reason for this non-violent behavior was that he felt that humans would avoid conflict. They would not seek out conflict, and in a hypothetical state of nature, that there would also be plenty of opportunities for them to avoid conflictuous situations. People somehow kind of dismissed some of the notions and dismissed the idea of the state of nature that Jean-Jacques Rousseau developed, and the idea of the noble savage that's occasionally attributed to him, Jean-Jacques Rousseau himself would probably not have recognized and not have approved of. It's crucial to recognize and to be aware that for Jean-Jacques Rousseau, the state of nature was ultimately a hypothetical situation. It's what he imagined to be. And he realized that in real life, or in more normal situations, humans are ultimately social beings. And they will interact with people, and that will create opportunities for violent behavior. However, still, he did not feel that it was necessary to accept the ultimate conclusion from Hobbes that authority was needed to control violent behavior. He felt that humans, based on their ability to reason, could come up with a way of living together, a social way of living together, that would allow them to be largely peaceful. Quite famously, in a recent study, Steve Pinker talks about the inner demons versus the better angels of our nature. He talks about patterns of conflict, both within societies and between societies in the long run, and argues that actually over time humans have become better at constraining themselves, have in fact become less violent. He bases himself on the insight of social and evolutionary psychologists. Clearly, some of his ideas are not universally accepted. In particular, his argument that modern societies are ultimately less violent than primitive societies have been or still are where they exist. However, it is useful to kind of survey the various insights that can be found in social psychology, linking human behavior to what goes on in the brain and what goes on in our motivations for actions. The social psychologist, evolutionary psychologist Roy Baumeister distinguishes between various motives, drives for human behavior. In particular, he looks at predation, revenge, dominance, and sadism. And to a certain extent, these motivations, these drives, are not even exclusively human. They are, however, clearly distinct, and the easiest way to illustrate why they are distinct is actually by looking at what activities of the brain are involved in the various activities. Predation is linked by another psychologist, Jaak Panksepp, with our seeking system. This is actually a very rational activity that involves a large part of the brain. As I said, a lot of these activities can not only be seen within humans, but can also be seen in animals. If you look at a picture of a cat that is hunting, you will notice that it's very intent. It is clearly focused on what it's doing. This is aggressive behavior, particularly if you're a mouse, but it's aggressive behavior that is very rational. It's trying to get something, to seek something. And that's clearly distinct from a more immediate response to a threat to survival. Again, if you look at a picture of a cat or an animal that's being threatened, you will notice that it reacts really, really aggressively, but in a completely different way. Panksepp was able to locate these different drives to different parts of the brain. In particular, the seeking behavior, in a sense rational aggression, takes part in the prefrontal cortex. Humans have a very large part of the brain is made out of the prefrontal cortex. Seek and revenge, the immediate response to a threat, can be found much further inside the brain, much deeper in the brain, in particularly in the hypothalamus and amygdala. These core parts of the brain respond much more immediately and less reasoned. if you look at the final two motivations that have been identified by Baumeister and Pansep, the dominance identified by